They were born before the invention of color television, yet they're still stealing the show in 2025. Their stories span a century, from Broadway spotlights to Oscar-winning performances. Time may have blurred the fame of many of their peers, but these legends continue to defy the odds and age. One dance icon just turned 99, still gliding across the floor like a man in his 30s. Another screen goddess hit 100 and can still recall her electric chemistry with Marlon Brando. And one beloved sitcom dad, who could teach TikTok stars a thing or two about charm, was literally dancing on a desk at 98. They've outlived their critics, their co-stars, and sometimes even their own legend. But what makes their journey even more riveting isn't just their age. It's the spirit they carry, and the legacy they still build. Dick Van Dyke is a name wrapped in nostalgia and sunshine. Born in 1925, he's now 99, and instead of fading quietly, he's been dancing through decades of stardom. Van Dyke's journey began on Broadway with a Tony-winning performance in Bye Bye Birdie, and his star shot upward from there. The 60s saw him become a household name as Rob Petrie in The Dick Van Dyke Show, a role that defined television comedy. His chemistry with Mary Tyler Moore was so authentic, viewers felt like they were part of their living room. But it was more than just good scripts. It was Van Dyke's uncanny gift for physical comedy, his comedic timing, and the grace of a natural-born entertainer. When the world met him as Bert the Chimney Sweep in 1964's Mary Poppins, he lit up the screen with childlike charm. That questionable accent? It only made fans love him more. Behind the scenes, he was offered the role of James Bond, which he hilariously declined, admitting he'd never survive with that accent. But his modesty was part of the magic. Then came Chitty Chitty Bang Bang in 1968, where he turned a flying car into a childhood fantasy. And his career never stalled. He transitioned smoothly into shows like Diagnosis Murder and films like Night at the Museum. In 2024, for his 99th birthday, Van Dyke told a studio he'd love to play a sitcom grandpa, just to stay active. And yes, he was still singing and dancing. That spirit is priceless. But behind the camera, Van Dyke's life has also been a masterclass in managing fame, health, and finances. Throughout his career, he maintained multiple insurance policies: health, life, and professional liability, critical in an industry where injuries on set or canceled productions could mean financial disaster. He diversified early, investing in art, vintage cars, and even theater production companies. He's known to have owned several classics over the years, including a Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud and a Cadillac Eldorado. And he's rumored to wear a Patek Philippe watch, subtle but timeless, much like him. Van Dyke didn't chase wealth. He preserved it with balance. His modest real estate portfolio includes a private estate in Malibu, with ocean views, and a modest compound in the desert, showing he valued privacy more than excess. That's the quiet genius of his lifestyle. Classic elegance without extravagance. Fast forward to 2025, Van Dyke had to slow down, canceling some events due to the toll of travel. When asked how he was doing, he joked, "I feel old," with that same twinkle in his eye. That moment wasn't just funny. It was profoundly human. He's not just a star. He's a survivor, an optimist, a living heartbeat of Hollywood's golden age. Then there's Ava Marie Saint, whose career began before the golden age even had a name. Born on July 4, 1924, her rise to fame was quiet, slow-burning, and when it hit big. Working odd jobs at NBC, hustling radio gigs, and navigating post-war television wasn't glamorous. But her breakthrough came in 1954 when she was cast opposite Marlon Brando in On the Waterfront. Not only did she land the part, but she walked away with an Academy Award for her debut. She was paid just $7,500, but the value of that role? Priceless. That film wasn't just legendary, it was emotionally raw, and Saint brought a softness and intensity that lit up the screen. The behind-the-scenes tension director Elia Kazan created wasn't just for drama, it made every scene pulse with authenticity. Her transformation was cemented when Alfred Hitchcock personally recast her image for North by Northwest. Gone was the drama queen. In came a suave, poised, and powerful woman in elegant gowns. Hitchcock micromanaged everything, from her wardrobe to her voice, and his vision turned her into a cinematic enigma. Saint nailed it, and she didn't burn out in the limelight. She chose her projects with care. Only 20 major films across an 80-year career, each one meaningful. She lived a private but fulfilling life with her husband, director Jeffrey Hayden, for 65 years, an eternity in Hollywood. She was involved in mentorship programs, stage readings, and nonprofit arts work well into her 90s. Even when she stopped acting in 2021 at age 97, her influence never faded. She turned 100 in 2024 as the oldest living Academy Award winner, a distinction that's both awe-inspiring and humbling. Financially, Eva Marie Saint lived smart. She never flaunted luxury, but she built lasting wealth. She owned a Manhattan apartment and a modest home in Beverly Hills. While never flashy with jewelry or cars, she was once spotted in a vintage Mercedes convertible in the 70s. Her investments leaned toward long-term assets, real estate, art, and joint ventures with theater companies. She also benefited from legacy royalties and maintained health and life insurance policies, which allowed her to avoid the common trap of late-in-life medical debt that hit many of her peers. One offhand gag between Mel and Carl Reiner evolved into The 2,000-Year-Old Man, a hit that not only earned him a Grammy but financially rescued him during his leanest years. It's a quiet truth most fans never knew. Brooks once danced on the edge of bankruptcy, only to joke his way out. His rise didn't just happen on set. It happened in the silence between the laughs, when the world wasn't watching. But what really sets Mel Brooks apart is how he turned absurdity into gold. Who else could pitch a comedy about Hitler and make it a cultural triumph? The Producers wasn't just controversial, it was genius. It won him an Oscar, then decades later shattered Broadway records. That kind of time-defying success is rare. Most artists age out of their relevance. Brooks reinvented it. He didn't just repeat stories, he reimagined them, bent them to fit film, theater, and public mood. Then, 1974 happened. A year so triumphant, it should be taught in film schools. Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein dropped the same year. One mocked the Old West with fearless satire. The other was a monochrome masterpiece full of heart. Gene Wilder dazzled. Brooks played multiple roles, some uncredited, like a secret cameo only insiders noticed. That kind of uncredited commitment is what kept him in the game while others faded out. Yet behind the laughs, he built a serious empire. Brooks Films was a quiet powerhouse that brought us The Elephant Man and The Fly. He left his name off the credits, not out of shame but strategy. Mel knew the weight his name carried. He didn't want jokes distracting from heartbreak. That's a masterclass in ego control most in Hollywood never learn. Mel Brooks' net worth sits around $100 million today, but it wasn't always glamour and millions. Back in the 60s, he juggled debt while chasing creative visions. Then Broadway struck gold. The Producers' stage adaptation alone pulled in over $200 million globally, fueling his real estate and luxury portfolio. He owns a multi-million-dollar townhouse in Manhattan and a hillside estate in Santa Monica. And yes, there's a Rolls-Royce in his garage, alongside a Bentley that Anne Bancroft adored. His watch of choice? A timeless Patek Philippe, understated and elegant, just like his legacy. Even after Anne's passing, Brooks kept the humor alive. Their bond lasted over 4 decades, an eternity in Hollywood terms. Their son Max, author of World War Z, carries that same razor-sharp wit. Mel's family isn't just surviving, they're thriving. That continuity is his real empire. Then, like a time traveler out of his own sketch, he returned in 2023 with History of the World, Part 2. Over 40 years after the original, he was back in the writer's room, still delivering punchlines, still defying time. Audiences didn't just laugh, they gasped at how sharp he still was. Even in voiceovers, like in Toy Story 4, his presence crackled through the screen. Mel Brooks hasn't faded. He's just shifted frequencies. Meanwhile, in a story equally inspiring but carved from a different kind of grit, James Hong remains a symbol of resilience. Born in 1929, he was supposed to be an engineer. USC even handed him a degree. But his heart? It belonged to performance. Hollywood in the 50s wasn't built for someone like James. Roles for Asian American actors were few and often degrading. White actors in makeup still dominated the scene. But James didn't wait for permission. He forced open the door. In 1965, with actor Mako Iwamatsu, James co-founded East West Players, a sanctuary for Asian American talent and a revolution in stagecraft. At one point, 70% of Asian American actors in Hollywood had a connection to this company. That's not just influence, that's cultural groundwork. It's a reminder that sometimes survival means creating the very world that won't let you in. James began popping up on screen in the 50s beside legends like Clark Gable and John Wayne. They were background roles, but Hong brought such versatility that casting directors kept calling back. By the 80s, he wasn't just acting. He was transforming every role. Think Lo Pan from Big Trouble in Little China, a villain so iconic he haunts pop culture decades later. Or his brief but memorable appearance in Blade Runner, crafting synthetic eyes with trembling humanity. Through the decades, James Hong's presence has been unshakable. His resume? Over 700 credits. In Seinfeld, he played the unforgettable maitre d' at the Chinese restaurant. In Kung Fu Panda, he voiced Po's dad, a performance so beloved it earned him an Annie Award. And in Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, at 93 years old, he took on a central role in an Oscar-winning film. That kind of late career bloom? Practically unheard of. His voice alone is a cultural treasure. From Mulan to Turning Red, he's shaped generations. Even into his 90s, he's kept voicing roles, proving age is no match for passion. Today, his estimated net worth sits around $8 million. A modest number for someone with his impact, but it reflects a life spent working, not chasing extravagance. That said, Hong still enjoys the finer things. He owns a cozy but elegant home in Los Angeles, filled with artifacts and film memorabilia. His garage houses a classic Lexus and a Tesla Model S, modern, efficient, and just his speed. He's been spotted wearing a Tag Heuer Carrera, understated but symbolic of his quiet authority. He's not about flash, he's about legacy. Jacqueline White proved that subtlety could echo louder than any spotlight. Now, at 102, she carries not just the grace of a bygone era, but the wisdom of a life fully lived, away from the flashbulbs, but never out of reach. She turned down the glitz for something more valuable: peace, legacy, and family. That single choice made her not just an actress of the golden age, but a timeless example of what it means to know your worth beyond the screen. And speaking of worth, let's talk about someone who spent a lifetime redefining it: Elizabeth Waldo. Her story feels almost mythical, like she stepped out of an old legend and just kept playing music for 100 years. At 106, she's not only a survivor of Hollywood's earliest chapters, she's the guardian of forgotten sounds. She didn't just collect instruments, she resurrected civilizations through melody. Most people didn't know it, but her real estate empire was quietly impressive. She owned Rancho Cordillera del Norte, a sprawling cultural estate in Northridge, with a private 150-seat theater and art spaces. That's not just luxury, That's legacy construction. Her net worth, while modest on paper, estimated between $1 million and $3 million, doesn't reflect the cultural capital she built. Waldo's wealth was never flashy. It was functional, invested into instruments, education, and preservation. She never bought sports cars or private jets, but she possessed rare flutes from China, panpipes from Peru, and instruments made before modern history had a name. And yet, one of the most fascinating financial choices she made was in the 1950s, self-funding her groundbreaking albums when no label would take the risk. That kind of move? That's the original artist-entrepreneur hustle. Her collaborations spanned continents. She didn't just perform with legends, she wrote with them, advised them, and opened their ears to worlds they didn't know existed. Her business decisions were always aligned with her mission: education and preservation over profit. Even her health and career insurance policies were non-traditional, structured through academic partnerships and grants from cultural institutions. The financial lesson here is simple but profound. Invest in your purpose, and value will follow, even if it takes a lifetime to be seen. Now shift the lens to a different kind of spotlight. James Hong. If resilience had a face, it would be his. After decades in the industry, Hollywood finally gave him what he had more than earned: a star on the Walk of Fame. But that shiny slab of sidewalk wasn't just about recognition. It was a testament to every door he kicked open, every stereotype he dismantled. At 95, he was producing fantasy films, starring in ensemble hits, and still walking red carpets with that mischievous twinkle in his eye. When Jamie Lee Curtis said, "It's about time," she wasn't exaggerating. She was voicing what millions felt. His journey started with bit parts that barely had lines, yet somehow he carved out a path that turned those moments into monuments. His estimated net worth has grown significantly in the last decade, from under $1 million to nearly $8 million today, thanks to roles in critically acclaimed films, royalties from decades of TV appearances, and smart real estate investments. He owns property in Los Angeles and has held equity in several production projects. It's said that Hong also invested in tech startups during the late 2000s, alongside younger actors he mentored. He doesn't flaunt wealth the way others might, but behind the scenes he's lived comfortably, with luxury sedans like a Lexus LS and a collection of high-end watches, including a vintage Omega Seamaster gifted during his early TV years. His insurance portfolio has been tailored to protect his legacy, covering health, screen royalties, and intellectual property. One Hollywood lawyer even noted that James's contract clauses were some of the smartest they'd seen from an actor his age. While others faded, James Hong made longevity his brand. His financial success wasn't built on fast fame. It was earned through endurance, leverage, and loyalty to his roots. He turned minor characters into cultural landmarks and built a fortune from fragments. Now imagine a life that briefly burned in Hollywood before turning into something quieter, richer in other ways. Jacqueline White is proof that legacy doesn't require a long resume. Her decade in front of the camera was brief, but impactful. The film The Narrow Margin alone continues to bring in modest streaming and licensing revenues, which contribute to her estate's growing value. While she never built a business empire, her choice to step away from Hollywood meant she preserved something even more valuable: her personal narrative. There are whispers in the collector's market that some of her early scripts, costumes, and personal effects now sit in private archives, valued at over $200,000. Her real estate history is humble, but telling. Her longtime home in Wyoming, where she raised her family, is appraised today at close to $1.5 million. No exotic cars or penthouses, but that ranch gave her the space to raise 5 children and host grandchildren. That's wealth too, just not the kind you'll find on TMZ. As we look across these stories, what ties them together isn't fame, it's fortitude. Whether it's Elizabeth Waldo bending time with her music, James Hong rewriting the Hollywood playbook for Asian American actors, or Jacqueline White choosing family over film, each legacy speaks to one truth. It's not about how loud you start, but how long your echo lasts. In an industry known for discarding its veterans, these icons stood firm. They diversified, adapted, and endured. Their financial blueprints offer a masterclass in longevity. Align your work with your values, build assets that reflect your passion, and never underestimate the power of strategic silence. They didn't chase trends, they built legacies. And in doing so, they've left us with something rare in Hollywood: honest inspiration. Because sometimes, the most powerful story isn't the one splashed across headlines. It's the one still unfolding in quiet rooms, on forgotten stages, in homes filled with instruments, scripts, and photo albums. That's where Hollywood's true heartbeat lives. And these living legends are keeping it alive, note by note, frame by frame, choice by choice. And there you have it, the wild ride of George and Amal Clooney. From red carpets and lakefront palaces to private jets and courtroom drama. We've uncovered Hollywood glamour, power moves, royal rumors, and a marriage that somehow balances it all with style and a whole lot of charm. Whether you came for the romance, the real estate, or the juicy behind-the-scenes drama, we hope you were entertained. If you loved this dive into the Clooney empire, hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe, because we're just getting started. Coming up, we've got more untold stories, iconic transformations, and shocking celebrity truths you won't want to miss.